Welcome to Life, Love, and Jesus. As we are continuing our journey through God's Word, today we are beginning a new book, the book of 2 Samuel. And before we dive into the scriptures, let me just remind you, if you're not on my email list where you will get those one-page study guides that I send out when we finish every book, go ahead and sign up. The link is in the show notes, and you will get them automatically when you sign up, when we finish each book throughout this year. And the ones that have already gone out will always be available for you in the online library, which I call the Treasure Trove. With that said, let's dive into the content. We're in chapters 1 through 4 today, learning about what happens to David and Israel, the kingdom of Israel, after the death of Saul. So chapter 1 starts with David hears of Saul's death. Saul and his sons have all died in battle with the Philistines, and a survivor of that battle goes and finds David, and he tells David that Saul has died, and David says, well, how did he die? And the young man that came and told him was an Amalekite, not an Israelite. And he told David, well, I killed him. And David said, how could you put out your hand against the Lord's anointed? And then David had him killed for claiming to have killed Saul. David never killed Saul when he had the opportunity to. He would not go against the Lord's anointed. And he did not think it was right for anybody else to do so. And if the young man had been honest about Saul dying in battle and dying by his own hand, then David would not have had him killed. But undoubtedly, he was probably looking to curry favor with David because he was expecting David to now be king, and he thought this would be a great way to do it, which in the worldly kingdoms of the day would have been correct assumption. But with David, the man after God's own heart, it was not. And then the rest of chapter 1 is David's lament over the death of Jonathan and Saul. And then chapter 2, David is anointed king, but he is anointed king in Hebron only, anointed king of Judah, not over all of Israel. And then also in chapter 2, one of the sons of Saul that was not killed in battle, Ishbosheth, is anointed king over Israel. So now we have two kings. We have David as king, and we have Ishbosheth as king. And we have Abner, the general, behind Ishbosheth. And we have Joab, who is the general behind David. And these two factions go to battle, and that's in chapter 2 as well, at Gibeon. And Joab, the general on David's side, had two brothers, and they go to battle as well. And during the battle, one of Joab's brothers chases down Abner and is almost to the point of being able to catch him and kill him. And Abner kills his brother. That's very important to remember. We'll come back to him in a minute. And then Joab and the army of David follow and destroy the army of Ishbosheth and the army of Abner throughout the night. And kind of the civil war kind of leans David's way. But that doesn't mean the kingdom's united right away. And then in chapter 3, Abner kind of sees the handwriting on the wall that, Ishbosheth might be Saul's son, but he's not really going to be king of Israel. And so he goes over to David's side and he says, I want to join you. And Joab says he thinks that Abner is a spy, but in fact, Joab just does not want Abner to be part of David's group of men, David's army, because Abner killed his brother. And Joab is more interested in revenge than in accepting someone who might unite the kingdom under the kingship of David. And so Joab and his surviving brothers set up an ambush and kill Abner. And David is not happy about that at all. In fact, at the end of chapter 3, he has a public mourning time for Abner. Undoubtedly, part of that is for political reasons, to show the rest of the nation of Israel that David did have their best at heart, that he wants them to know that he cares about the entire nation, not just the tribe that he is from. And then in chapter 4, Ishbosheth is murdered by two men that had been in following Saul when he was alive, not necessarily in the army. It says they were part of the raiding parties. They were now kind of supposed to be loyal to Ishbosheth, but instead they ambushed him and they murdered him, probably thinking to get on David's good side. And this is what I wrote in the margin of my Bible about these two men, Baanah and Rechab. They were playing by the rules of warrior cultures of their day. They saw the tides shifting toward David, and they sought to get in his good graces by betraying Ishbosheth and murdering him. And in other cultures, the Philistine culture, the Amalekite culture, the Babylonian culture, the Egyptian culture, the other cultures of the day, the warrior cultures that they lived amongst, the Canaanites and all those people, this would have made perfectly good sense. But David knew the difference between someone dying in war, in battle, and someone being murdered. And so he did not think this was a good move. He had both of them killed for their treason. So that's the end of chapter 4. Ishbosheth is now dead. Abner is now dead. Those that sought to gain David's favor by killing Ishbosheth are now dead. David is king in Hebron, and Joab is the commander of his army under David in Hebron. And it looks like the tide might be turning. The faction that wanted to follow the family of Saul, the sons of Saul, has all been destroyed in civil war, and no doubt partly because of God's judgment. So there we are at the end of chapter 4, and we will continue in 2 Samuel and other days coming ahead. Now, after we do our content, we always go to our 3 questions. What do I learn about God? What do I learn about myself? And what do I need to change or obey in my life because of what I have learned in God's Word today? And this is what I have written about what do I learn about God. And I'm just going to read the whole thing to you. God keeps his promises and still expects his people to be holy. He can and does use evil people and evil actions to fulfill his will. Like when Saul died in battle, that was evil because there was an army, a pagan nation coming to battle against Israel. But he fulfilled his will by removing Saul from the kingship to prepare the way for David. He can and does use evil people and evil actions to fulfill his will and his promises, thus letting his people pursue righteousness instead of machinations to achieve what God has promised. So David knew he would be king over Israel. Right now he's just king over Hebron. And God has used the evil people that killed Ishbosheth, the last surviving son of Saul, to prepare the way to unite the kingdom of Israel under David's kingship. That's God using evil people and evil actions to fulfill his purposes and his promises, while allowing David then to remain a man after his own heart, pursuing righteousness, not reaching out his hand to take matters into his own hands and make things happen in his own time. David was trusting the Lord, letting the Lord handle it, and the Lord was handling it by letting evil men do their evil deeds. And sometimes we don't always understand. I don't always understand why God lets evil people do evil things. But I know in the grand scheme of things, God is in control. And at the end of history, he will be glorified and exalted. And all those who follow hard after him will be with him in glory, praising him and worshiping him. And it will be beyond our imagination. And that's good enough for me. I don't have to understand all the whys and wherefores. So that's what I wrote for my answer. Again, I'm over time. I guess I ought to just give up that pursuit of the 10-minute video. And I hope you'll be back here tomorrow. I'm just going to wrap it up. Share this video with your friends and family. Like and subscribe. And have a wonderful day living for the Lord.